This episode is sponsored by Sentry.io. Recently, I came across a great tool for tracking and monitoring problems in my apps. Then I asked them if they wanted to sponsor the show and allow me to share my experience with you. Sentry provides a terrific interface for keeping track of what's going on with my app. It also tracks releases so I can tell if what I deployed makes things better or worse. They give full stack traces and as much information as possible about the situation when the error occurred to help you track down the errors. Plus, one thing I love, you can customize the context provided by Sentry. So, if you're looking for specific information about the request, you can provide it. It automatically scrubs passwords and secure information, and you can customize the scrubbing as well. Finally, it has a user feedback system built in that you can use to get information from your users. Oh, and I also love that they support open source to the point where they actually open sourced Sentry if you want to self-host it. Use the code DevChat at Sentry.io to get 2 months free on Sentry's small plan. That's code DevChat at Sentry.io. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Ruby Rogues podcast. This week on our panel, we have Dave Kimura.
Hey, everyone.
David Richards.
Здравейте.
I'm Charles Max Wood from devchat.tv. And this week, we have a special guest, and that's Genadi. I'm not even going to try and say your name, man.
It's Genadi Samokovarov.
Yeah, what he said.
Hello, folks.
Do you want to just introduce yourself real quick? Let us know who you are, what you've worked on, and all that good stuff.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Genadi. I'm a Ruby developer based in Sofia, Bulgaria. I'm an occasional Ruby on Rails contributor, and I'm the maintainer of the web console gem, which is a debugging tool which comes by default in new Rails installs. I also run a few events in Bulgaria. One of them is called Balkan Ruby, and it's a Ruby conference, international Ruby conference. And the other one is called PartialConf, which is a functional programming conference.
So you said that you work on the web console. And
yeah.
I'm curious, did you build it or you just maintain it now, or how did that all work out?
Okay, so the console started as a Google Summer of Code project back in 2013. So I was a student under Guillermo Iguaran. So in a way, I built it with the help of Guillermo and David, because when we started, the idea was very loose. We had to find the project. We just wanted to put a Ruby repo on the browser, but we didn't know what it would be used for. So the first two versions of Web Console was actually just a repo in a browser that runs in the state of your current program. Then it was a terminal emulator. It was really a terminal emulator running the Rails console command. Mm-hmm. And eventually we found the current usage, which is, you can spawn a console everywhere in your program, and we can show it to you afterwards. You know, it's a debugger that doesn't stop the world. So we eventually found that, like, in version 2 of the project. So Web Console has been turned around a few times, and it took some time to actually find its place and shape as it is today.
So I guess the thing that I'm wondering is, I don't know about your browser. Maybe you're running something a little bit different, but mine doesn't have anything that will run Ruby on anything like WebAssembly or Transpilot or anything. So how do you actually run Ruby in a web console?
So you actually send the Ruby to the server, and the server executes it, and the server is your Rails application, and then you give the result back to you. So we have this thin layer of front-end code, which sends the Ruby code to the server and then shows the result. So with the current web console, everything is executed in your program. The way I like to think of a web console is as a fancier, but in a way, you leave it in your program. This debugger doesn't stop your program. It lets your program run, and then we show it to you after the request is done. So you can introspect your program at this point of time.
So I guess the other question is about security concerns, right? Is this something you don't want to run in production, or?
Oh, no, you don't want to do that. It's you can execute Ruby code, which means you can execute everything. So it's a huge RSC. It's a really huge RSC.
Got it. Yeah. So you can use this at home. Don't use it on your server.
Yeah, we have gone a long way to actually make it really hard for you to run it on production. We don't include it in production by default. And if you run it on production, we have like configuration flags, which you have to say, in a way, I know what I'm doing. Please run it on production. So the current security model is kind of loose. It's based on IP authorization, and it runs on development and mostly trusts your local host, which may give you some problems if you are running a development environment in background or Docker. But other than that, we try not to. Yeah, we don't recommend running it on production because it's really insecure.
Yeah, it's one of those features that I think a lot of people overlook in Rails because it's something that's added in by default when you start a new Rails application. But then you have to proactively add in a ERB tag to launch the web console on that particular view. And a lot of times people will either just throw a raise, like a ERB and a raise, and if they have something like better errors or something, then they're able to essentially get the same thing. But this way you can still interact with the page and interact with the objects just like you would if you have better errors or something without, losing the full rendering of the application. So I think it's something that a lot of people just forget about, and they don't go to that as their first option. They do a raise or a binding pry or something like that instead. So what use cases over, what I just mentioned, would you really think that Web Console has a place for?
Web Console is in a way alternative for that. For example, if you have like a wrong result and you're wondering why your problem like doesn't raise an exception, you can try to track it interactively, just spawning consoles at this point of time. I did a talk in RubyKaigi about the implementation of Web Console, and I was debugging a real error that happened on the website of our local meetup. And for things like this, it was really convenient for me to just say, okay, something is wrong. I don't know what's wrong. So just spawning some consoles and while rendering the page, figuring out what exactly is wrong. So I'm not sure whether we have advertised this feature of Web Console very well. I think most of the people are familiar with Web Console through the console in the errors, but this is just like a special case of Web Console. You can spawn this console everywhere in your program, so you can debug the state while your program is running. You don't need to stop it. So for me, it's kind of super useful. If you get a wrong result, just check it out with.
So what would happen if, because I've done this before in other situations, and it's horrible, that I put a bit of debugging code within my application and it actually got committed and shipped. So if you have that ERB tag in there with the web console and that accidentally gets shipped to production, what would happen?
We don't include web console in production, so you would most likely crash. But we have a few protections for that. We raise an error if you spawn two consoles, because it's really hard for us to figure out which one we should render the console for, in which context we should execute code from. But if you have just one console left out in the code, you're kind of on your own. It's like what happens when you forget a debugger statement in your front-end code. In production, it will most likely crash because we really try not to include web console in production. By default, it's not even in the development group in your gem file. So,
I got it. So crash. When you deploy to production, it'll just say, I don't even know what this tag is.
Yeah,
exactly.
No method error.
Exactly. So Web Console works. Web Console at its core is rack middleware, which sits between your requests. So every time you say console in your code, we leave like a cookie in a thread local storage, and the rack middleware knows that okay, you request the console to be rendered, and then we will render it. So in production, you won't have even this middleware in your middleware stack because you won't need it. And again, it's really insecure. So we've made sure that it's really hard for you to run it in production. Still, a lot of people ask us to run it on production. It's not a good idea. It's really insecure to run it on production.
So if it's just rack middleware, can I run it on like Sinatra or Rhoda or one of the other web frameworks out there too?
We depend a lot on active support, but if you make a bit of effort, yeah, we could actually make it, I don't know, Sinatra or just any rack framework. It's just that nobody so far requested this or wanted this support.
Cool.
But in its current state, no, because we depend a lot on active support.
So how exactly does it pass things to the back end? Does it just send the command back and then get the output back?
Okay, so how Web Console works is when you say console, we save a reference to the Ruby binding of your current context. So if you want to execute Ruby code dynamically in Ruby, you have to do it through this object called binding. Even when you call eval, kernel eval, the kernel eval method actually implicitly finds a binding and executes the code in it. So if you want to execute Ruby code, you need to execute it in a bind. And the binding objects are kind of special because they hold the state of the current stack frame. So if you're holding a binding, you're holding a reference to everything you have in your current frame, like every instance variable, every local variable, every class, your current self, everything. So we store this somewhere, and we have to store this in memory. We can't serialize it across processes or stuff like this because it's super internal for your current process. So when you request to, when you say, okay, I want to execute a console here, we save the current binding, we save it in memory, and then we know how to find it through the web interface. So every time you say, okay, execute me this command, we know how to find it, and actually the rack middleware dispatches a few post methods. So every time you type a command on the front end, it's hitting the rack middleware again, and the rack middleware knows, okay, this input, I need to execute it and give you the output. So that's how we actually communicate from the browser to the development process. And
so let's say that you set this up. Do you just include the gem in your Rails app? I guess it comes by default now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, by default, it's included in the development group in your gem file. So you don't need to do anything. So if you want to use web console in your application, you just need to say console somewhere. Console is a method in kernel. We have monkey-patched kernel. So everywhere in the program, you can just say console, and it will save your current context, and the rack middleware will then find it and can execute code to this context.
And if you want to embed it in a view in Rails,
you can again just say console in the view itself. So
that's nice.
Yeah, the Rails views are actually compiled to Ruby code. Everything you can call in there, you can call it in
nice.
In console. Actually, using web console to understand the Rails views is really nice because you can see what the self is and your local variables, like how this template code you had got built into Ruby code and what you can actually access from it. You can see how action view actually includes so many modules into it, how your helpers work. So web console is kind of nice for even learning how the view rendering works. And I think it's really nice when you learn Rails, you can use it to try to make sense of things, how they work.
Yeah, I would think that'd be one of the most exciting things. I know for me, the views, the stack, everything that's included and how it's included is always a little bit of a black box for me. I know what I can do, or I have habits, but I don't quite know what's going on. And that's after a lot of years of use. So being able to just open the web console and say, yeah, well, what's going on here? What do I have? And what was I thinking? And it's usually for me anyway, when I've had problems in some of my code, it's because I didn't quite understand the Rails way, how they organize things and get me ready for each step. And so being able to take a look, it starts to dawn on me that, oh yeah, that's, I was not thinking.
That's a common
Rails does a lot of stuff for you, and until you learn all those conventions, it's really daunting. So the console can help you with that as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interestingly, I learned Rails on a laptop it was just an old laptop, and my my graphics card was going out, so I went to just terminal mode only, and I learned the models really, really, really well. And it took me a while to come back around because I didn't have ability to even see graphics when I was
Wow.
So I was slow to the views, and so some of that black box around views and controllers and how the handoff works, and what a clean approach to delivering things looks like. It took me a while to figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, this convention comes at the cost of many abstractions and many implicit things which you have to eventually learn.
So is there anything similar, or can Web Console do something like this where you have a separate JavaScript front-end app, let's say it's Angular or something like that, and then you have a Ruby API backend? Are you able to use Console? Is there any kind of JavaScript plugin that will allow you to integrate with that?
We have two unfinished browser extensions because every time you want to debug something, we have to inject this front-end code into your code, and a lot of the times this can mess up your layout. So in a way to solve this, we wanted to build browser extensions. So we have a prototype of an extension that you can run the console through a development app in your browser development tools. So you can definitely use it like this. So far, again, we didn't have that much interest into this, so we never finished those prototypes. But it is possible to use it like this, and eventually I think this may be even a better idea. We have some plans, like we call it always on mode. When in development, we can always have the console running. And if you have your browser development tools, maybe you can open them and just execute code at any frame of your program.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows? You can use it like this, but so far just the standard frontend that comes with the bundle gem. That's what most of the people use. So I don't know, something interesting about the console is that it actually works both on CRuby, JRuby, and it just works on Rubiness as well, but we haven't checked the support. And making this whole interaction work is kind of specific. It's specific to every interpreter. So we have one way of getting a binding in CRuby, one way of getting the binding in JRuby. But it actually works on JRuby, guys. If you have tested the console on JRuby, it can work there as well.
That's really cool. And I think that's a really important note because a lot of people, when they are developing a gem or something, they only keep one type of Ruby or one interpreter in mind. And that's usually whatever they have installed on default or whatever the CI is running. They don't really take into account the CRuby, JRuby, or the MRI, if, whatever they're using. So I think that's pretty awesome that you guys are proactively taking into account all the different interpreters and it works across platform.
Yeah. Writing debuggers is a tricky business, and every interpreter has its own quirks. Like it used to be really hard to do debuggers in CRuby. I don't know if Julia Evans talked about how she has to preserve different headers across different CRuby interpreter versions, so she can make sense of those tags in her RBSpy program. But for CRuby, the things got way better throughout the years. Like in the last 4 or 5 years, we got way better APIs. So writing tools like Web Console is getting quite easy. But still, those utilities are not available in Rubyland. The APIs that we use to build Web Console for CRuby are the tracepoint API, which is a way to handle interpreter events. So, for example, every time an error is raised, we are hooked up on that event, and that's how we get a stack trace for when the errors happen. But if you say console, we need to unroll the current stack, and we cannot do that in Rubyland. So we're using the debug inspector API for that. And this API is available only in CRuby. And I think that if this API is exposed to Rubyland and is standardized, we can write a lot of the debugging tools only in Ruby, and they will work on both CRuby and JRuby. So it depends. If we build a bit of tooling around it, and we have official APIs across both CRuby and JRuby, maybe we can build things like debug only in Ruby, and no need to couple ourselves to CRuby internals or JRuby internals and things like that.
So is this still under active development, or are you mostly just fixing any problems you find in it?
But mostly it's maintenance right now. We don't have any major features planned. So yeah, it's a stable project which we mostly maintain at this point of time.
What was the hardest part of putting something like this together?
Getting it to work. Just getting it to work was really hard. No, really, because
I think we discount that on a lot of things we work on, right? It's not, it was trying to figure out how this one feature needed to go. No, just getting it to work sometimes. Yeah.
Just getting it to work was hard. And sometimes another hard thing that we had was the integration with the error pages. When you raise an error in Rails, you're not seeing actually the first point in which the error was written. For example, if you're working with the strong parameters API, and if you have an unpermitted param, the error will be raised within the Rails framework code. And we won't show you the Rails framework code, we will show you your application code. So it was really hard to actually get, we're showing you your first application frame, not the first frame in which the error occurred. And it was hard for Web Console to actually know, the web page is showing you this piece of code. So the web console has to find this frame and give you the context of this exact frame, because it's really confusing for the people to see your application code and execute code in actually ActionPack or Ruby or Rails framework internal code. So there are many small details like this which we had to figure out along the way. And yeah, just finding the right context, it's hard in some situations. Getting the web console on the error page again is kind of hard, because you have to preserve the context in which the error was raised. And again, this is not so trivial. So yeah, the hardest part was getting it to work and making sure that it's stable and it doesn't crash across interpreters. And
That's something where I've been in situations where it has given back the Rails stack trace, not the actual part of my application. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? Like, I have no idea how to debug this. It's not until, I dig a lot deeper to actually find where it's in my application part. So having that kind of precision is really crucial for debugging quickly.
Yeah. And to be honest, we didn't get the proper bindings in the first few versions. So maybe this put off a lot of people because they were trying to execute code and it wasn't in the proper context, and they were like, this is no good. So getting stuff like this right is kind of important. So dealing with errors, it's tricky. You wanna be as convenient as you can get, because people are frustrated, they're confused, because again, it's an error. So whatever you can do to make it easier for them will help.
Hey folks, have you tried out RubyMine? RubyMine is an IDE dedicated to Ruby and Rails development. It allows you to quickly find and fix code smells, refactor code, and develop faster thanks to smart auto-completion suggestions. RubyMine comes with a powerful GUI-based testing and debugging suites. With 3 major releases a year, the IDE continuously becomes more robust and adds more features. Learn more and get a 30-day trial at devchat.tv/RubyMine. Anything else you guys want to dive into with this, or should we talk about the Balkan conference for a minute?
Let's talk about the conference. That's exciting to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so Balkan Ruby is a new conference which we started this year. It comes out after we hosted Euroku in 2016. We were a small team of 3 people. I don't know if you guys know about Euroku, but Euroku is a really big Ruby conference in Europe. And every year it's organized by different people who were attendees of the previous Euroku. So in 2015, we pitched Sofia, Bulgaria as the next city for Euroku, and people voted for it. And they just gave us the conference. Like, Euroku is a really big conference, and the people just give it to you to organize. So we had our conference organizing, school organizing Euroku 2016. And after this conference, we wanted to start our own conference in Bulgaria. So that's how Balkan Ruby came out to be. We wanted to organize it in 2017, but by the time we scheduled it, there were many Ruby conferences in the autumn. So we decided to put out another conference, which is PartialConf, our functional conference. And when we found a better date for the conference in 2018, we just started this brand new international Ruby conference in Bulgaria. This year, we had 14 speakers from all around the world. We had Zach Holman, Robert Musogo, Dynashy. We had pretty interesting lineup. And for 2019, we're doing Balkan Ruby again. It will be on May 17th and 18th in Sofia, Bulgaria. We will have this time Aaron Patterson and Aileen Uchtel as keynoters. And yeah, we'll be announcing it pretty soon. I hope that by the time this episode is published, we will actually have the tickets running for Balkan Ruby 2019.
So you're getting these conferences going. Is there a pretty strong, healthy Ruby following out in Bulgaria and in Eastern Europe generally? Yeah,
I think in Bulgaria we have a small Ruby community, but we're really vocal. We do lots of events, lots of meetups. We had like 10 Rails Gurus events. So it's not comparable to like the Java industry in Bulgaria or the C# industry in Bulgaria, but it's pretty active, pretty healthy community. Ruby is quite alive and well in Bulgaria. And I think people from Europe find it interesting because they get to visit a new country and get to see our community. So it's not just in Bulgaria, in our area. I think we have lots of interesting companies in Bulgaria, for example, product hunt. Most of the development of product hunt is based in Bulgaria. In Serbia, we have the Semaphore CI guys based in Novi Sad. So we are rolling out some interesting products from our region. Again, maybe it's not as big as in the States, but it's small but active community.
Nice. Yeah, I find it's interesting. I was around with Ruby in 2004. So there had been people that have been using Ruby for a long time, but Rails was new. It was really interesting as communities develop, people start to enjoy, what Ruby can offer. It gets really fun to build an organization around that and empower people to do great things, simply and directly. So I think that'd be fascinating to do work, with people just learning Ruby rather than people that have done 100 apps and they're just keeping up.
First, that's how we get most of our Rubies. We actually convert them because they always work on something else. And if we want to find a good Ruby developer, we need to find a good Java developer and teach him Ruby and who's really willing to learn Ruby, because Ruby isn't that popular in Bulgaria, but again, it's getting traction, getting better and better throughout the years.
So that's just like one of my coworkers. I finally got him off Vim and started using VS Code. I mean, sometimes you just have to show people the light and get them to switch.
Okay, we shut you down
on VS Code. I can help you switch from Emacs.
Oh no!
I've been on VS Code for 6 months.
You already switched. Good job.
I already switched. Yeah.
Maybe I'll give it a chance just so that I can say that it's terrible. But yesterday I had a 20-minute pairing session and I made sure Emacs and SpaceMax is running before I would even start for those few minutes.
Yeah.
We like our tools.
I enjoy my terminal Vim. I'm so used to the terminal, I cannot get rid of the terminal Vim. But I get why people like VS Code. It's just so much easier than learning Vim and setting up all the plugins and just maintaining this. I'm so used to it by now. I cannot write on something else, but I see that people VS Code.
Maybe I'm so feeble-minded that if my editor changes a little bit, I can't think. Maybe that's what the real problem is.
Yeah.
Well, I used Emacs for a long time, and I actually turned on the Emacs key bindings in VS Code, and so. Yeah, I'm still essentially using Emacs. I just get all the nice extras that are offered by VS Code, and it's not as heavy-handed as an IDE, and so I don't feel like I'm like, okay, there are 10 zillion things here that, I don't have to worry about any of that garbage.
Yeah, it's surprisingly hard to set up tooling for language like Ruby or Python in Vim or Emacs. Just getting like IntelliSense to work or something like this, you have to learn a lot of Vim to make this work.
Yep.
I think the key with the editor or Ruby or whatever tools we're using is just that expressiveness, that it can translate from the way I think to the way I want to get things delivered. As long as I can get there quickly.
Yeah, I don't want to think about the fact that I'm using an editor. I just want to think about the fact that I'm writing code. And so as much as I can get that out of my way, that's a happy thing. So.
And that's why I think VS Code has such an appeal now, because most of the things just work. So you can just do work. You don't need to set up stuff to make your development experience better.
Yeah.
So how many attendees have you guys had at the conference?
Okay, so for 2018, we had 150 attendees, but we also had a pretty small venue. So it looked super packed. For next year, we hope that we can get more, maybe 200, 300 people.
I have to say that the conferences that I most enjoy attending are the ones where they're about that size, about 150 people. Because then I can kind of see everybody. I can talk to, most of the people in the room at some point during the conference. And it's just a little bit more intimate experience. The larger conferences, I feel like I'm kind of lost in the crowd. And even though I tend to know people or whatever at the conference, I don't know. It's just different for me. So
yeah,
I get wanting to grow the conference and offer opportunity for more people to attend it. But, you tend to have kind of a special thing at the same time.
Yeah, I can agree with you here. People tend to be more communicative when they're in smaller batches. Not if you have 1,000 people in a conference, the people are kind of afraid to talk to each other.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed at successful conferences, bigger ones, is they tend to make it easy to break into small groups and to see the same people a few times throughout the conference. So that, I've noticed in big conferences that sometimes there's thousands of people there, and we might see the same person twice if we know who they are. So what people tend to do is they just kind of hover around the famous ones or the ones that are doing something big. But there's so many things that even the new learners can teach and show, or the excitement or the conversations. Like, if I just start talking about a project I'm on at a conference, somebody will say, oh yeah, that reminds me of, and then they'll teach me something I didn't know. And I end up doing things differently on my projects. I did that once as Alistair Cockburn had come in to a conference I was at, and we were just out in the hall. We talked for about an hour, 2 hours about things, and I had new ideas about how to structure my project just because we were talking. Obviously he's seen a lot of projects over the years. He's one of the signers of the Agile Manifesto, so he's been around for a while. But it was powerful because it's just, one-on-one conversation talking about projects. And I find that works anytime in a conference. If people can just get to know each other for a minute and talk about what they're working on, it's always productive.
Yeah, I think that having a single track conference helps because you don't get to choose one talk over another. And that way people segregate. I mean, some people can talk about this talk, some people can talk about the other talk. And if you have a single talk, a single track, everybody will be talking about this specific talk. Something that we do in our conferences, I don't know what you guys think about that, is we always delay the questions after a talk. We don't have interactive Q&A sessions. So we always say, if you want to ask the speaker something, just find the speaker after the talk and talk to him or her about it. What do you guys think about having specific time allocated for Q&A in a conference?
One thing I also like is when the attendees set up a back channel. So they'll create a Slack channel or IRC channel, and then a lot of those questions will pile up there, and then the speaker can come back later and talk about specific questions during their talk. And if they're not already answered, sometimes they get answered before the talk's even over. But
so, is there anything else you're working on now?
Right now, I'm busy preparing PartialConf, which will be on 13th of November this year.
Which one's that one?
This is PartialConf, our functional conference.
Okay. PartialConf. Got it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Partial function application.
Yeah.
We are just a small group of people. We're just 3 people organizing Balkan Ruby and PartialConf. So we kind of feel a bit more indie, organizing smaller international conferences. But we're seeing how our friends get organized more and more international conferences in Bulgaria. We have a very active conference scene, but most of our local conferences are just in Bulgarian with local speakers. And we're seeing more and more people just making international conferences. And lots of foreign people, lots of foreign attendees come, lots of foreign speakers come. So I think it's healthy to have more and more international conferences in our region.
Cool. So how do people find out about these different conferences? Do they have websites, I'm assuming?
We're building a conference for our company called noevents.com. Other than that, balkanruby.com, partialconf.com. We have a Twitter at balkanruby, and we have a Twitter handle for partialconf at partialconf. Yeah, this is
awesome.
For Balkanruby, you can find updates about it on Twitter.
Nice. All right. Well, if we don't have anything else to talk about, let's do some picks.
Do you run your own freelance business? Or maybe you're thinking about picking up some business on the side? Well, then you need FreshBooks. FreshBooks is the quickest and easiest way to get invoices out to your clients. It's easy to use. It works anywhere, available from any device, on the desktop, iPhone, iPad, Android, and all of your data is backed up and secure. And it makes it really easy to get organized and get paid. You'll be tracking time, logging expenses, and invoicing your clients in no time. You can also save time billing, freeing up several days per month to focus on the work that you love, and you get paid faster. FreshBooks customers are paid on average 5 days faster because there's a link on the invoice that says pay me now. And it's a great way to grow your business. Plus, FreshBooks is offering a 30-day trial. That's right, 30-day trial if you try them out. So go to gofreshbooks.com/devchat and enter devchat in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Once again, for a 30-day trial, go to gofreshbooks.com/devchat and enter devchat in the How Did You Hear About Us section.
David, do you want to start us off with picks?
Sure. I've been listening to this a great book. It's called Creative Quest by Questlove. So you might know him from the Jimmy Fallon show. And a great guy, very interesting. And so I've got a link to that book, which is amazing. And then also just an overview of what Questlove's about. And to me, that links to my life in the sense that I'm always creating something and figuring out how to approach a problem in a way that I don't get in my own way. So, which for me takes extra effort. So I like having things like this around where I continue to see problems in a new way and approach it differently. So, Creative Quest by Questlove.
Nice. Dave, do you have some picks for us?
Yeah, sure. So I'll get back to my tools picks. So clamps. If you do not have clamps in your wood shop, then you should get some clamps because they're absolutely necessary when you're trying to bind two pieces of wood together with glue. They are super helpful. So I picked up some DeWalt clamps recently and I've absolutely loved them. And they have so much strength that this past weekend, I was actually out power washing and staining our fence. And I realized that one of the posts had come completely detached from the railing that all the boards are nailed up to. So I just got one of these big clamps that I had gotten, these DeWalt clamps, and I was able to just squeeze it right back on. The nails got pushed right through. Then I just secured it with a screw. So clamps are awesome.
What kind of clamps?
It's a DeWalt.
Are you using spring clamps or C clamps or?
Oh, it's just one that has a little trigger that will, push the two ends together.
Okay. So you just kind of squeeze it a couple of times to tighten it up?
Yep. So it was able to.
You can do them one-handed.
Oh, yeah. So that's one pick. And I'll pick a taboo pick, Action Text. If you haven't played around with it, it's really cool. And if you've ever had to do any kind of WYSIWYG in your application, it doesn't have to be a CMS or anything like that. But a lot of times you want to provide some kind of WYSIWYG, or it's a what you see is what you get editor within your application. And in Rails 6, they are including Action Text, which is backed by tricks and active storage for image uploading. And playing around with it, it's really cool. It's something that I think is going to be a good overall addition to the Rails applications that have, the action view and all that stuff.
Awesome. I'm going to jump in with a few picks. Now, mine are a little more focused on other things. The first pick that I have, and this is something that I've been playing with for a little bit, or listening to, for the last week or so, is the Diabetes Code by Dr. Jason Fung. And basically, he walks through some of the problems with the traditional views on how diabetes works and why the different treatments out there for diabetes. I'm a type 2 diabetic. Why those tend not to work. And it pretty much explains why I've had issues going to different doctors trying to actually get help with my diabetes. So anyway, it's been kind of interesting just listening to that and realizing, oh yeah, these doctors have no idea what they're dealing with. So yeah, I've been trying to find a new doctor that actually will work for me. One other pick that I have, and this is something that I'm going to go back to, I haven't had health insurance for a while, which sounds crazy for a type 2 diabetic. I've been doing the keto diet, and I've been able to keep my blood sugar mostly under control with that. Occasionally I go crazy for a few days, my blood sugar will start to climb again. But it gets back under control with the keto diet. But I would still like to be able to talk to a doctor. I just need to find a new one. But anyway, as far as health insurance goes, the way that I've found my health insurance in the past, and I've been absolutely happy with them, is by going through a local company that kind of does a lot of financial services. So they also have helped me find auto insurance, home insurance, and things like that. And the way that I found them is through Dave Ramsey's certified, what do they call them? Anyway, they're certified service providers. I can't remember the exact term that he uses, but it's something like that. And anyway, he just recommends solid people. They give solid financial advice, and turned me on to this company that has helped me with a lot of these other things. So if you're looking for one of these, they're endorsed local providers. That's what he calls them. So if you're looking for health insurance, home insurance, life insurance, all that kind of stuff, go talk to one of those folks, because I've dealt with one or two other ones, and they're all really, really awesome people and straight shooters. So, whether you agree with Dave Ramsey on other particular issues or not, his recommendations for local providers is solid. So, Genadi, what are your picks?
Okay, so lately I've been reading a lot of nonfiction books. So what I just finished is the biography of Nelson Mandela called Long Walk to Freedom. It's actually an amazing story, and if you're curious a little bit about history and South Africa and just the commitment of Nelson Mandela and his struggle, it's a fascinating story. I think you guys can check it out.
Awesome. And if people want to find you online, where do they go?
I'm Samokovarov everywhere, so you can find me at GitHub at Samokovarov, on Twitter at Samokovarov, and I have a website called samokovarov.com with just my social links.
Awesome. Well, that was fun. Definitely interesting to talk about. And, thanks for all the work on the web console. I found it helpful. Sounds like Dave and David have both found it helpful. So thank you.
Thank you so much, guys, for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah. Talk to you later.
All right. We will call it a wrap right there.
Bandwidth for this segment is provided by CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with CacheFly. Visit CACHEFLY.com to learn more.